All right. Thanks everyone for joining. Today is the 11th of November. We have Makoto from ENS who's kindly sharing his time. So we don't have much time today, so I will try and take not as much time to go through the typical stuff. Our sponsor is Etherscan. Quick message from the sponsor. If anyone is interested to work in the blockchain space, and if you're in Malaysia, feel free to apply. No matter whether you are technical or not, there are a lot of roles there. So please feel free to reach out to me if you are interested. Right, so some quick announcements before we start. There is GeckoCon that's happening from 17th to 19th. If you haven't bought your tickets already, I think the prices are a little bit higher now, but you can still buy them. And there's going to be a lot of stuff about NFTs there. There will also be an in-person event early in December, and I think ETKL will be supporting them. I think we're still talking, but yeah, so it'll be an event about NFTs, about kind of like the confluence of art and technology. So if you're interested, keep an eye out for that. When they announce it publicly, then we can share the link for you to know more. And last quick announcement, Chiranjit, who's in this call, is doing a workshop on deploying your own NFTs on Polygon with your own smart contract, not using like OpenSea or something like that. And that is tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. So if you guys are interested, again, keep an eye out. I think we'll create a meetup page and share it in the Telegram group. So then you can RSVP and make sure you don't miss it. All right, so some quick monthly roundup stuff from local news. Just today, it went quite viral. There is this, for the Muslims here, there is a kind of new kind of guideline on paying zakat for crypto. So you can check that out later. And Namui, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, just kind of infamous songwriter in Malaysia, launched some NFTs, and I think he sold like millions of dollars worth of NFT songs. Our ex-prime minister, double ex-prime minister, went on this long tweet thread about how people have been using his name to to shield this crypto scams. And yeah, so just saying that he's not involved. And I don't know if anyone knows of this company. It's called Inigra, and apparently they have tokenized their equity on Polygon. That went around in the crypto news channels, although I don't know any Malaysian who know this company. So if anyone knows, feel free to mention in the chat as well. And then some global news, I think everyone should know by now, the ENS token, governance token just launched. I think at least some people here would have gotten the airdrop. And as Bradley has tweeted, it's not necessarily money, it's a responsibility. And yeah, we'll be asking Makoto some questions about it later. Adobe launched this NFT feature where a content creator can kind of, it helps content creators to show that a piece of art that was created or NFT that was created is created by them. And a bit kind of funny, scary, interesting news. Earlier last month, there was this a world coin that announced itself using an optimistic rollup called Hubble. And so they have this machine that scans your iris and you get free money essentially. Yeah, there's not much time, so I won't go into this, but there's a lot of good and bad points to discuss. And I think lastly, we have news. Pleaser DAO bought this. It's a pretty cool story. They bought this Wu-Tang Clan album that is unreleased. Previously was bought by some kind of eccentric person, and then that person went to jail. So now the album is with the US government. And I'm not sure what the plans is. If people might know, then you guys can share later as well. But yeah, it's a pretty cool story where NFT or blockchain has crossed over into the real world. And without further ado, I think I'll just invite Makoto to do your talk.
Cool. May I share?
Yep.
Okay, where's my slide? Hold on again. Let me show. Here we go. Okay, can you see my slide?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so may I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So thank you very much for inviting to the East KL, and yeah, I'm happy to be here. My name is actually before I say my name is, I usually said that my name in Ethereum world is Ethereum wallet, and my Ethereum address is 0x5S3A422 blah blah blah, which no one remember, even I don't remember. So I do have sort of Web3 username called Makoto.eth, and yeah, I'm hoping majority of people are already familiar with what ENS does, but a kind of fast use case is that you can use for payment address. Like, if you open up MetaMask, you type Makoto.eth, then it shows the same address. So important thing is you're not paying money to the name itself. You're sending the money to the address which the name resolved to. And the second thing is people, I think Nick Johnson, who's a kind of founder, creator of ENS, he claims that he started that putting ENS name into Twitter address. Then once Vitalik started doing, then now everybody start kind of following that trend, and then you can use it almost like a social identity. And this is almost like just putting your ETH name, you already have payment address built into social network. And this is more new stuff that I can talk about a bit later, but now we have more integration with PFP kind of movement, so that if you set your NFT information into your ENS name, we kind of show that as your image of ENS as NFT. So another thing important is .eth name is NFT. So if you search Makoto.eth in OpenSea, you can actually find my ENS, and you can actually try to buy from me, even though I won't sell. And yeah, if you really like it, this is one of the example that Bradley Milligan, our team member, went to New York for NYT NFC NYT. I always get confused. Then he just put on the billboard, and then you can see all these people who put ETH name and said avatar in a huge billboard, which made everybody really happy, including myself. You can see it's called Buster again, I think. Yeah. And so today so this slide is the one I gave for the previous one, but I briefly explain how it started. And in the growth, I can talk about probably the username aspect, and the decentralization is obviously the ENS token. And so the genesis is that I'm actually based in London. I've been here for over 17 years. And when I first got into Ethereum, that was June 2016. And one of I think the second meetup I attended in Ethereum London, I saw Nick Johnson presenting about Ethereum Name Service, and so that's the first time he ever kind of announced or showed it to the public was this day, back in 2016. And at that time, I think before he was in Google, and then when he quit, I think he had a brief moment. He was working at Swarm team, and the Swarm is, I don't know if people are aware, but back in the days, Ethereum used to be called world computer. There's no word for DeFi or NFT, and Ethereum is world computer. And we had two other concepts called Whisper, which is a messaging system, and Swarm is distributed storage, which is pretty very similar to IPFS, which people store like an NFT asset. And he used as a fast use case as address space on this Swarm system, which now works as well. And we also do some custom integration with IPFS. So you can actually do IPFS.io, and I think you can put your ENS name. And if your ENS name sets so-called content ID, which is a unique identifier for IPFS or Swarm, it actually shows the assets. And this was kind of fast use case. And we did sorry, initial launch back in 2017 May, and always I tell people that like May the force be with you. The Star Force is a way to remember the launch day. And back then we did the launch spread based on the name. So if you have certain name, you can auction immediately. But if you have a different name later, so we staggered it over 3 months just to avoid the big congestion. I think this was the first time Ethereum people started doing ICO back from 2016, but 2017 was a time we had a first very strong bull market where I think back in March, its price was around $10. And at the end August, it became 200. So it went 2x or 10x. And some big companies, I think Brave did the ICO, or Banca, fast decentralized exchange, automated market making system did that ICO. So we first encounter congestion. Then I was thinking, oh bloody hell, this is 5 Gwei, 10 Gwei, that's so expensive. Now 150 Gwei, that's cheap, right? That's completely different world. But then we had about 180,000 names auctioned. I can explain what auction means, but then we had a huge amount of money locked. Again, I will explain, but that was over 170,000 is locked on the smart contract, which was worth 70 million at that time. Now it's worth 750 million. And one trivia is that because of the fact that it was stuck, the auction was staggered for over 3 months, and the CryptPunks, which is one of the so-called false NFT, was released in the middle of ENS launch. So, and we often call ENS is one of the original NFT as well, even though it was not the ERC 721 until 2019. So some of the name is we call pre-punk, and I created this kind of fun Dune Analytics dashboard, so that it depends on the name. If you were that early, you can look it up and whether your name was minted even before the punk. And that was kind of fun. And so that's how it started. And so the growth is as I mentioned, it was one of the craziest launch back then in the first bull market. But after that, after basically in the 3 weeks, 3 months of people just getting as much name as possible, then we got long periods kind of staggered. And the part of the reason is, so now I think if you have an ENS name, that you pay $5 per year plus crazy amount of gas price. But at that time, it was not like a renewal model. It was more you lock your ETH, which you bid for the auction amount, and then you hold the name. And if you release the name, you get your ETH back. So it was almost like a deposit system. So this was the way. So Nick Johnson, when he first launched, he wasn't quite sure what's the best model. So he already said within 2 years he's going to upgrade to something else. But until then, he wants you to have some system. So if something goes completely wrong, people can just get get the money back. So that was a system, but it had no kind of disincentive for squatters. So it was basically cultivated by all these named squatters. Then, but we already knew that majority of people weren't really using. We could say that there's ENS is still a bit complicating. That you have to register, and you have to set something called resolver, which you can store the same address to map to. But now, if you register, we do it all in once, but at that time it wasn't. So until you do the extra step, you couldn't even use ENS, and the 80% of name hasn't done the last step. So we already knew majority of only 25% of people actually would use ENS as a name system, and so we realized that that's not good. So after huge discussion, we kind of came up with a bit boring system, just using annual registration fee, which we enabled back in 2019 May, and so that time we did a bit of a spike. And in 2019, until that time, you couldn't have a short name between 3 to 6 characters. But this is the time we did a short name auction. So that's had another spike. Then year after we switched, we said you have a 1 year kind of transition period. And after that, we will gonna basically expire all the names. So from August 2020, all the people who hold it in the past 3 years, they basically lost the name. They can still get them a deposit back, and there's still millions stuck there because even I haven't withdrawn because the minimum amount was 0.01 ETH, which is now probably about the same amount as a gas price. So like there's a huge amount. If you go to reclaim.ens.domains, it actually has exact amount which still got stuck. And but good thing is after that, you can see the registration actually went up continuously, which kind of indicates that. And there are lots of people who says like I think I saw Peter from Guest tweeting that like he had his username taken at the initial launch, so he couldn't have that name for a very long time. So he waited until this gets expired, and then after that he just took it. So that kind of explains why, like, we have other competitors who says like, oh no, well, rent is bad, right? Like NFT is all about like ownership, so rent is bad, but like we actually went through all the past and we struggled. So this is an answer for us. So even though it's still not the best, I think you have to have some sort of incentive, like kind of economics around holding it. Otherwise, people just exhaust all the available name just for the speculative purpose. And so, yeah, we didn't have anything until really the last 2-3 months. Yeah, from like May onward, that people suddenly discovered that ENS is NFT, and also we started promoting a couple of things which is beyond our initial concept. So like I call it 3 growth engines. And the first is that Web3 username, which was original title, is that, so one of the feature is that if you go to your address page on the manager, you can actually select so-called primary name. You used to call it reverse record. Once you store it, you can, if you connect it to many of the dApps, a decentralized app, it recognizes your name. And also, that's why Uniswap, you can see in the OpenSea. Then OpenSea has its own unique username like people pleaser. And probably if she goes to Foundation or somewhere, she might have slightly different. But as long as they use the same Ethereum address, you all map to the same name. And this is Etherscan. And I think this made a huge difference of ENS as a like username on the so huge kudos to like Etherscan team. And and we did, I think we did a lot of discussion like about like, oh, this is working, this is not working. It's a bit tricky to display technically, but great that it's been there. And so now that this is an example of a people pleaser DAO who was formed to bid for the art done by people pleaser. And you can see that the core member James is, I think he was showing that the in the news there's a news of like buying the kind of limited album. You had it in the news, right? That guy, the white guy, he is actually James, and that's actually his Ethereum address and transaction, and you can see it everywhere. That's good. It's connected to the news, so that's great. So if I recap, basically, in the era of Web2, each silo had its own unique username, but in the Web3 space, as long as they use Ethereum address, you can have a consistent ENS name. But like it's not just Ethereum, actually, I will touch upon later. And now we have like over 300 dApps supported. And the second part is the PFP. You already seen that. Initially, that kind of concept kicked off by, I think, Zappa, which is a kind of wallet visualization tool that you can see with your Ethereum address. You can see what token you hold, and they enable the feature to pick the NFT. But that information is stored in just their database, not shareable. So we came up with a standard and using the so-called text record. Text record existed since the start on the 2017. But all we did is like, so you can specify basically key and value. So you can put Twitter as Makoto Inoue, GitHub Makoto. And on the avatar page, if you put in this kind of special format of like a chain ID NFT type 7211155 and collection contract address and token ID, basically it has enough information to say to fetch the metadata, so it shows, and also you can show that whether that specific token NFT is owned by a specific user. And yeah, then I already showed you that like you can now see that in metadata, like background image of your ENS as NFT. And so the important thing is this is basically shared across all the Ethereum ecosystem. So this example, like a Winch integrating with this avatar. So it shows the avatar when you log into Winch. And so as second one is Uniswap. And the third part is still, I think, not fully be taken advantage of. But this is, I think, what takes ENS to the basically the mass market is going beyond .eth. And there is three aspects. First, I initially said like ETH name is to send ETH to, but like it's actually not that true. That like we have over 200 so-called coin types supported. And if wallet, such as the one which integrates the most is so-called Trust Wallet. So in case of Trust Wallet, you can actually send Bitcoin to Ethereum address to Brantley. I don't have Bitcoin, but he probably has it. So he has his BTC address. And so yeah, you can do it for multiple chains. And also we are trying to do more integration with L2. So this is going to be the hot space probably next year. And also this wasn't really new. This existed since 2018. Is that not just .eth, but you can, if you own the internet domain, such as like Argent.xyz is a famous wallet company. You can actually have Argent.xyz as the ENS name. And the great thing is, and we have a ways to prove ownership through kind of DNS information, so that like for .eth name, we charge $5 a year just to prevent from squatting. But because this puts trust into the DNS, we don't have to charge anything. Hence, this is free. But the caveat is that gas fee claim is super expensive. I am the first one to claim that, I think .com. I claimed .brantley.com for him, and I think I paid like 0.1, 0.4, something like that. That's crazy. So we still have an area of optimization, but it's there, right? And so great thing is like if you have like Web2 companies who might have their ETH name taken, they can just have this name as with their website as an ENS name, and they could issue subdomain to users. That kind of usage, I think I'm very excited. And the last bit is about ENS. There's a movement called Sign In with Ethereum. It's short for CW. That like basically now there's so many companies start talking about integrating with Ethereum. Like for example, I think Twitter is thinking about doing that feature to select NFT. Reddit has been talking about integrate with Arbitrum for ages, and I think Discord recently showed that you can do this login with MetaMask and the Wallet Connect. For as more Web2 companies start connecting to NFT, that's kind of the area that now even Web2 companies show connects to Ethereum address. Then you can use ENS as a kind of cross-platform identity layer, and the login with Ethereum is one of the ways to standardize that movement. So like any Web2 company who wants to get into Web3, it should be able to easily integrate to Web3 world. And last bit is the decentralized ENS. This I created about a week ago. It's already massively out of date because we already launched. But like one of the stuff is why now. I think Nick and Brantley had in a Bankless podcast yesterday or a couple of days ago. Then he was kind of explaining the full detail, which you can listen. But the gist is that we did have always the idea of decentralizing the root at some point, because all the names, it has a hierarchical level. So if you have subdomain, its parent has power to govern everything underneath. And so if ETH, the parent of ETH is a root domain, and that's governed by 7 multisigs. We kill the feature to take name away from you, so that you cannot do anymore, but they can still do something like changing the basic registration fee, or even kind of renewal fee. So this is the first step to decentralize that. And also another important thing is, when we first started, we always have like, should we DAO or not DAO? And always Nick's answer is like, well, DAO is not really mature enough. But I think since last year, like DAO space is really, really maturing. So we have a lot of good tool set. And the last bit is that we actually have a lot of revenue. And so important thing is, apart from the short name auction, which we outsourced the work to OpenSea, and it never went to our multisig. So that one we used, and that was one of the ways for us to keep funding our development. But apart from that, all the registration fee has been in smart contract, and that's untouched, except for one occasion we donated $700,000 to Gitcoin. Apart from that, it's untouched. And for these, we always pride ourselves as a kind of public goods for Ethereum and beyond. So like it's not just us. We only have like less than 10 people in the team. So it shouldn't be us just deciding this huge amount. I think there's a David Mihai, he just added into the protocol fee.info or something. And apparently for last few days, it's just usually, I think last year around this time, we had about like 100, 200 names a day. And for last two, 3 months, we had I think 2,000 names on max. And yesterday it was like 8,000 names or something. And the revenue fee getting ridiculous amount. So all these things, we need more people to have say on how it should be spent. So that's kind of why. And I think we are not the first company you start using that so-called delegation. The kind of decentralized massive governance is that not everybody have time to keep up with all these proposals and votes. So we did a so-called delegation system to basically for people to delegate their voting power, so that these people can delegate on your behalf, vote on your behalf. So this is kind of started with, I think, Compound, but Gitcoin kind of innovated that they kind of mandated at the claim time. So, and we kind of even excelled that we also had a closure of a so-called constitution. And even before the delegate, people basically have to declare their stance about what we believe. But when you join, and it's all done as a snapshot voting, which is kind of off-chain voting with very popular among DAO. Apparently, like we thwarted, basically we DDoS the snapshot.org. So like when you had a problem like signing, that's because we are basically DDoSing their system. So I'm so sorry about that. But yeah, now like I think this is pretty much one of the interesting things that who can delegate. Basically airdrop to over 130,000 people. And this, I hope the guy, like she is 8 years, probably youngest, could be 8 months old baby whose father got parkerpage.is. And we also sent to kind of like over 100 external contributors. I think EtherScan publicly stated you receive part of the contribution, and people says, "Oh, it's so generous," but when we started, we had no idea about the price. So like people now surprised we are freaking out that like we saw like it's gonna be somehow popular, but like we didn't expect that popular. So we are kind of freaking out, but like we are fine. And for the delegation process, I don't know if anyone has done with delegation, but we kind of eat our own dog food. So like we not just in addition to basically stating your view on the constitution and write down how you want to contribute, you also have to put that information as a URL into ETH ENS delegate page, along with the kind of Twitter and avatar information. And yeah, these are all the people. I think when last week it was 300. I think a couple of days ago, once it started, we have 460 or something. So probably now, like, we have maybe over 500 people that been delegated. And if you go to Tally, and I think Tally Governance ENS or something, now you can see who's kind of top voters. I think top was like Nick Brownlee, then Coinbase. I think Coinbase is very serious of joining our governance. So like I think Coinbase is the top 3 or something. Yeah. I think that's about it. And from now on, like, yeah, everything is just like so fresh. So like, if you have any question from this point forward, I'm happy to answer from my probably 2-3 days of like all the history things. Like it's 3 days and it's already out of date. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Makoto. That was very enlightening on a lot of things. Can I have a quick check with you on your time? How much time would you have?
Maybe 10-15 minutes, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll ask you questions, and maybe you can let us know when it's about you have to go. Then we can do like 1 or 2 last questions.
Sure.
Before we end it. So if anyone has any questions, I think for the sake of timeliness, you can just put it in the chat, and I can help ask just to make it a bit faster. And I think I already see at least one question, but before we get there, I always like to ask the first question on like, can you kind of give us your backstory as to how you joined Ethereum or blockchain or ENS? Like, how did you kind of like go down this rabbit hole in the first place?
Yeah, so as I showed in one of the first slide, I got in back in 2016, and it was March that I used to work as a backend engineer at the insurance company in London. And the one was the CEO at that time said, apparently there is something called a distributed ledger. That was a kind of term used to be used at that time. And they said apparently it's going to be huge. And the UK government wrote a paper about how it's going to change the world. So he just sent out the email with the article, and he finished. But he just said like, this looks interesting, but I have no idea. And he finished ended as that is. But I was kind of intrigued, so I started reading that. Then I started learning about different blockchain, but it didn't really make sense until it hits Ethereum when they talk about smart contract, which is programmable money. Then suddenly, I thought, okay, yeah, if you can write something, I should understand. And but in the very beginning, it was very hard to learn because there's not much information. All the information is out of date. So I started writing blog posts about how I just go through the website of the Ethereum.org going through tutorial. First person who responded is Jeff Lau, who is now actually the team member of ENS as well as Kickback. So that was quite funny. Then, so because I was kind of frustrated how that, it's hard to learn. So first thing I did is, okay, I organized a meetup. So I started organizing a meeting. At that time, I was organizing actually every other week. And I did it as a charity purpose that my company said that we're going to go to Sahara Desert. And I said, okay, I don't know how to I've never raised charity. So why don't I organize meetup? People can come, drink beer or from the company's fridge, but why don't you, donate $5? So that's how we started meetup. But at the same time, there's some Ethereum maxis, they refuse to use a credit card to give charity. So they give me half a ETH and I use my credit card. That's how that. And then Nick came, I think, in August, I think, to my meetup, and he started talking about ENS. So that's how I kind of knew about, Nick. And Nick launched in 2017. I was kind of vaguely involved by going to his annual workshop, that kind of stuff. But I also had this during that meetup. I had a project called Kickback, where most people just sign up and don't come. So we just I create a simple staking contract that if you say you come, you stake that first time I created that was 1 ETH. And if you don't come, we slash it and then we share with the people who came. So yeah, like first time I did it, everybody came in 2016. Second time I did in ECC Paris 2017. 7 people signed up and the 4 people came, so we share like 0.3 ETH or something. That was very good. Yeah, so that's kind of how I got that.
Nice. Yeah, I wish we had more time to go into Kickback, but I think we'll try and focus on ENS.
Yes.
In the time that we have. So okay, 90210.eth asks for avatars, can we use NFTs from other EVM chains as our avatar image?
Yeah, so protocol itself has the chain ID in one of the specifications. So I think it said EIP 155/1. So if you put other chain ID, it technically should resolve, but our metadata service apparently not looking up on Etherscan, the Polygon, so or other chains. So like it's not showing, but technically and specification wise, it is possible. It's just like our backend metadata generation service is not supporting. So if you want to set that in a delegation page, probably it won't display. Yeah, but it still recognize that you are the delegate, but it just doesn't probably doesn't show up properly. Yeah.
Okay. Then Jun Lee asks, what learning resource would you recommend for those who are curious about how the inner workings of ENS?
So I think we have a newsletter. So if you go to ens.domains and if you scroll down, it says join newsletter. So if you put that in, you can get up to date. Best way is also Discord. Now is a not good time because everybody's talking about token. So maybe if you wait for maybe 2-3 weeks, and once it settles, there's a channel so you can ask questions. And one way to learn is just to create some app and learn how you can integrate with ENS. We have a doc ens.domains, and there's a couple easy ways to do the integration. So, and also some libraries like Ether.js, they natively with ENS. So integrating the app into ENS is a first step. Then probably that gives you more understanding about what ENS is and how it works underneath.
All right. Chiranjit asks, will future ENS buyers, I imagine ENS name buyers, will they be rewarded with ENS tokens? And what will be the mechanics for that?
We as a team, I think we only plan for the initial token distribution. Anything more than that is kind of beyond our hours. So if some DAO delegates decides to propose that may happen. But we are currently not planning to add anything extra.
Okay, cool. Satya asks, they bought, I think it's a very good question. So they bought an ENS name with their main address, but now they don't want to be doxxed. So what would be like some advice on how to deal with that?
So if you set ENS name, and if you set a primary address, you'll be all your transaction is shown on Etherscan, right? You can unset that so that I think there's a bin button in the address page to set primary name, so you can unset primary name, and also if you unset record page. So if you go to our app, there's name and your username, and it shows registrar, controller, and resolver and ACM address. If you unset that, if you type ENS name on MetaMask, it doesn't show resolve to your address itself. However, everything in a blockchain is kind of immutable. So the fact that you register at some point is not possible to change. So that history is you can't change. I don't think there's no way around that. So the nice important thing is quite often, we recommend people to use ENS name as your public profile, but we don't recommend using the same one to store your lots of stash, probably better not to put punks or anything like that. You should separate to some Ethereum address. And if you want to have ENS name, feel free to do it. I actually have a couple of names which just for the private purpose, but make sure just don't send fund from your public ENS name, because people see the trace of where the money comes from. So in that case, if you really want to be thorough, you have to send the ETH from like something like Tornado, or like you could use with centralized exchange. There's one interesting development that there's a company called Sysmo, and they are looking for some ZK solution to basically attest that you own Punk without showing what address it is. So that could be interesting development that now, so that like you could, like something like avatar system. One of the problem is like probably not many people, all the delegate, they don't have punks, because punks is just too dangerous to put into your public Ethereum address. So I saw a couple of apes, maybe penguins, but I don't see it. But in the future, probably we should be able to show that this address has some coin which prove that this person have punk or something. That's more future. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. The next question, is it technically possible for parachains or cross-chain bridges, for example, Polkadot, to interact with ENS, or at the very least give users options to link ENS to a parachain address? I think you answered this a little bit earlier.
Yeah, so one of the stuff is basically just we have in the main chain there with a multi-coin address, so you just put that. But like that means that you store in mainnet about their coin information. There's ways to actually store in L2, but that's mostly related to rollups where, yeah, it gets very complicated. But for some layer 2, we have some plan to work on, but probably it's a bit too complicated to explain now.
Okay, and so 90210 asks, okay, another question. What are the advantages of ENS when compared to unstoppable domains or other name services?
Yeah, so the biggest advantage is it has the most integration. So it's actually the thing, pretty much only thing people use in terms of naming service. We have at least dozens of whatever name service. I've never seen other people using. In terms of, yeah, Unstoppable is one of the one which also resides on Ethereum Name System. I think they have some plan for. I'm not Unstoppable, so I can't really say much. But I think they do great thing about onboarding new user by allowing people to buy in credit card. But I tried to see Makoto wallet, and they cost 10 grand. Even though it's like one purchase and only, but like I don't want to spend 10 grand, 3 characters, 30 grand or something like that, 300, crazy. Yeah, so if you want to spend that much money, so by all means. And also I think currently they do custodian way, which is okay, but to make it usable, you have to pay on-chain fee. So I think majority, more than half of the name doesn't actually exist on-chain currently. So I think you can't see that, but now they have a plan for Polygon. So I'm interested to see how they do. But yeah, the biggest advantage is just a network effect that like everybody using. These are the things like, why people don't switch from Twitter or Facebook despite like, so many things. It's a network effect. Right? Once it gets something like DeFi tools, it's all about liquidity. So there's lots of competitors. People can hop on and off. This user identity, once people using it, it's your own identity, so it becomes extremely difficult to switch. And now we are the front, like forefront of this identity space. So as long as we can maintain the good kind of gap between others, I personally feel like there's no reason to use others. But it's good to have competition, to be honest.
Yeah. Would it be correct to say also that like ENS has like TLD support, like top level domain support, whereas I don't think the other ones have, got through like a proper DNS.
So that's a good question. Like many other competitors tend to create their own domain space. And I mean, to be honest, .eth is our own domain space as well. But some difference is like you do at least need one domain space to start with. So we needed an ETH. And also ETH is a reserved country reserved code to Ethiopia. And Ethiopia has a .tl. So people could future buy random 3-letter characters like .pol or whatever, but they can't buy .eth easily. Having said that, we are planning to move. Yeah, we want to get that ETH domain in future, but like and also as you said, like like .xyz so many people, if you have domain name, you can do. And the interesting thing is that I think if internet domain registrar are interested in the Web3 world, they can have ownership of their top level domain and they can turn into ENS. The one example is the domain .cred, and I think .art does a certain degree. That .cred, actually they link their internet domain information to, I think, IPFS and put a hash into ENS, so that .cred internet domain, it automatically becomes ENS/NFT. So you can actually list internet domain into OpenSea and you can transfer. This was very innovative way. Started back in 2019. I would like to see some heavy hitters actually get the internet top level domain and do something like that. That would be super exciting.
Okay, cool. So I think if you have time, we can go like maybe 2 more questions.
Okay.
Okay, then Cedric asks, does ENS aim to solve existing problems in DNS in Web2? For example, fraudulent domains, domain hijacking, and will the fees of ENS domain be lower or more accessible to the common person in the future, similar to traditional DNS domains?
I think ENS domain fee itself is quite affordable, that $5 a year. What's not affordable is the gas fee to register. There is one interesting proposal came from Rickmu, who is the author of ESAS, that he was saying maybe we could, if you spend like $100 on the gas fee, that's almost equivalent to like 20 years worth. Maybe we could just extend the duration as part of the kind of gas fee, which kind of hurts long-term revenue, but at the same time, it makes it more affordable. I actually replied to that message that if you do that, probably it might be better to increase the fee from 5, not 5, because if you let people to have 20 years, that kind of defeats the purpose of having the annual fee anyway. So I don't really think it's good to encourage people to have longer. So maybe we could either max to 5 year or just increase the base fee, so that if you pay for $200, that's mean for 5 to 10 years. That could be an interesting solution. And fraudulent domain hijacking, I mean, it kind of, your key is your identity, right? Like if you wallet get hijacked, there's not much we can do, to be honest. But like you could have that as a multisig and let multisig to hold it. So there's, by being the kind of first class citizen of Ethereum, you could use the power of smart contract to do that, I think, as opposed to just using a traditional one. And domain hijacking. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay, so I think I'll just ask one last question, unless someone wants to chip in very quickly. I'm very curious to kind of understand if you are able to share right now, like the story of how the ENS team like started to work on the DAO plans, like how you kind of got advisors and like and designed the structure of the DAO.
Yeah,
are you able to share?
A certain degree, that I think, there's some of the ENS member kind of started bringing the idea of like, should we do some sort of this DAO idea, like every now and then, and then some other member kept like shooting off. But one encouraging thing was that Gitcoin did the fantastic token launch, sorry, not sale, which kind of encouraged that, that's actually, that was one of the first non-DeFi project did very kind of almost like fair, not fair launch because they have an investor involved, but like they did it. So that was actually this. I don't know whether we had the talk before launch or after launch. I don't remember. That was one of the big inspiration, and also I think it's also public that there's a company or organization called FireEyes, which includes James Waff and also Cooper Talley and the guy from Bankless, and Cooper. I knew Cooper before he became big, but yeah, and he's basically, he kind of said every DAO leads to Cooper Talley. Like, he did like super rare, and yeah, like I think he did Aave, like everything. And then I think we had I wasn't directly involved with DAO conversation, but I think we had a constant conversation with the team about how to give token to the right hands is most important thing, right? Like, and I think one of the good idea of like give more not to the number of names people own, but the total duration. I think that was the idea suggested by FireEyes as well. I think, yeah.
Cool. I think I'll just sneak in one very last question before we let you go.
Yeah.
And it's just a very, I guess, not so serious one. But I think a lot of people will be curious to know, like, are there any possibilities or plans to kind of pass the revenues to token holders? Or is that something that's just for the delegates to decide?
So I think it was in, so Constitution has 4 sections, and I think section 3, it says, don't just give it to token holders. That's partly because I think there's a fine discussion about the security debate as well, right? Like, because so we are less. I'm not the legal expert, so you have to. It's not the legal advice, but one of the stuff like kind of Huey test is like do you sell token? One, do you give dividends without any labor? These two are the 2 points to make it security, right? And we can't, if you don't give to dividends, and if you don't give it to if you don't sell, so we didn't provide any liquidity on the the exchange. We purely gave these two lower the how to say, kind of get out. If you start arguing about is ENS DAO security, the fact that we don't do these two will eliminate the risk a lot. If DAO wins to enable for the dividends, this becomes, I think it becomes DAO's existential problem. So I think that one, each member should think about the consequence before they say, yeah, I just want it, but like it's more important. But like, however, if it's to be given to the people who does the work through the delegation or the work proposal, that should be fine. And yeah, but that's it.
Yeah, and I just thought that would be very interesting for a lot of people here to hear. Yeah, so thanks a lot, Makoto, for sharing with us your time. I think it's also just nice. It's 1 hour, so we can let you go. And yeah, if you ever come to Malaysia, please let us know, and we'll be happy to have a proper in-person meetup with you.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Makoto.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye. All right. So if people are interested to stay on just to chat, we can stay here or go to Gather Town. I think if there's a lot of people who want to have different conversations, we can go to Gather Town. I think otherwise